Welcome to Your Healthy Kitchen from YRMC.
Welcome to Your Healthy Kitchen. I'm your host, Rita Carey Rubin. So we're featuring a delicious food today that lowers cholesterol, drops blood pressure, is easy on blood sugar, reduces the risk of certain types of cancer, can be dressed up or dressed down in countless ways, is inexpensive, and is eaten around the world in almost every culture every day. Have you guessed what it is yet? I know you have. It's beans. So wherever you are in the world, chances are you either enjoy beans now or did so as a child. I remember big pots of Boston baked beans simmering in the oven in my mother's kitchen. And today, I must admit that a beautiful bowl of slowly simmered beans is still one of my favorite comfort foods. So cooking beans from scratch, from dried beans, is really simple. All you need is a bowl, water, salt, some flavorings, and something to cook them in, preferably for a few hours for the best flavor, texture, and digestibility. You know, the best tasting beans take a while to cook, but the cooking time is mostly hands-off. Once they start simmering, beans cook on their own just fine. So I'd like to share my favorite way to cook beans and then talk about some of the other great options for turning these humble but nutritious superfoods into satisfying, delicious meals. So my favorite way to cook beans is in a crock pot. I find it's mostly hands-off, it's safe, my chances are I'm not going to burn the beans, and they turn out great. So crock pot cooking is usually my go-to method. I can cook any kind of bean in a crock pot, but my favorite beans are white beans. So these are great northern beans. There's also cannellini beans and lima beans. They all cook really well in the crock pot, and sometimes I mix the types of white beans up a bit. So the first step with cooking beans is to go and buy some. So try to buy beans where you think that there's good bean turnover, where people are actually in the store buying beans on a regular basis. The reason is that if beans are sitting on the shelf for too long, they can actually get too dry and too hard, and they won't cook very well. So if you've purchased some beans and you cook them and you cook them and you keep cooking them and they never get tender, that might be one of the reasons why, because they're just old. So find some place where you think there's a good turnover, and when you get the beans home, put them out on a plate or in a big bowl and try to sift through them a little bit, because you're looking for little rocks and little bits of dirt that are often in there just as a natural byproduct of harvesting. These days, beans are usually pretty clean. I don't usually find that in beans anymore, but look through them just in case, because when you bite down on one of those, it's really hard on the teeth. So after you sift through your beans, give them a good rinse in a colander, and that just rinses off some of the dust and the dirt that's on the beans. The next step is to soak them, because beans take a while to cook, and the cooking time is just the time it takes for water to be absorbed into the beans. So if you soak them, it helps to reduce that cooking time, and it also helps the beans to be more tender. So just you need a big bowl, some water, probably covering the beans by a couple of inches of water, and give the beans room to expand, because they grow. So just from soaking, I soaked these guys overnight, about 8 hours, you can see they expanded quite a bit. So, so soak them, and then after they're done with the soak, 8 to 12 hours on the countertop is fine. Throw away the water, give the beans another good rinse, and then the next step is to throw them in the crock pot. So I take the beans, and I've rinsed these, and this is fresh water. So I'll just pour them right in the crock pot. And I think I'll add a little extra water. I like to cover them with about 1.5 inches of water. And that leaves enough water to absorb into the beans, but also give me a little bit of really flavorful juice afterwards. So about 1.5 inches. I just put my hand in and kind of eyeball it. That should be enough. And then I want to flavor those beans, because they don't have a lot of flavor on their own. They're actually really very mild. So favorite recipe is with white beans is a bunch of garlic, So here's 5, 6 cloves of peeled garlic, just throw them in whole. 2 nice sprigs of rosemary. Throw them in. When these start cooking, it smells just great. I usually put in a pinch of crushed red bell pepper, not red bell pepper, but crushed hot pepper, which you can leave out if you want to. You could also throw in some bay leaves. That goes really well. And then cover them up, turn it on, and let them simmer 4 to 5 hours on high and maybe 6 to 8 on low. It kind of depends on the bean. That's all you have to do. You can also slow cook all kinds of beans on the stovetop and in the oven. 2 other really simple ways to cook those beans. So old-fashioned way is in a pot on the stovetop. You do the same process as you would with a crock pot. You put the beans in the pot. You can throw those same flavorings in the pot as well. Cover them with a little bit more water though, maybe 2 to 3 inches of water. Bring them to a boil and then turn them down and cover them and let them simmer. The one thing you have to do though if it's on the stove top is you have to keep an eye on them and stir them, because the beans down towards the bottom of the pot are close to the flame and they're going to be heating up a lot faster than the beans up on the top. So for the beans to cook evenly, you want to stir them pretty frequently and keep an eye on them because they'll burn, and that's usually what happens when I try to cook beans on the stovetop. So that's why I went to the crock pot. Another way to cook beans is in the oven. So just like my mom, she had one of those old-fashioned bean pots. You can use a Dutch oven or just a heavy pot with a lid that's oven safe. And same process as you would with the crock pot. Beans, flavorings, about 1.5 inches of water, about 275 degrees oven in the middle, on the middle rack. And check it in about an hour and then every 20 to 30 minutes just to see how they're doing. Give them a little stir. The oven is a really nice way to cook beans. They cook nice and evenly like they do in a crock pot because the heat is even around the whole pot. And they're less likely to burn, and they're more likely to cook evenly in the oven. So one thing I hear a lot from folks is concern about digestibility with beans. And beans do contain a carbohydrate called resistant starch. And that's a really important carbohydrate that's good for the gut. It's a major food for the good, healthy bacteria that live there. But the side effects of eating resistant starch can sometimes turn beans into a musical fruit. So here are a few strategies for making beans less musical. So first, soaking the beans for at least 8 hours and then tossing the soaking liquid really helps. And then cook the beans slowly for an hour or more. This really helps to break down those carbohydrates before you eat them. Soaking and slow simmering also breaks down some plant-based compounds called lectins and phytates that can interfere with good digestion. Second, if you're not used to eating beans, don't dive in. Just try adding a tablespoon or 2 to your meals every day. Gradually increasing the beans in your diet actually helps your body develop the ability to digest them better. And you might also digest beans better if you eat them with a green salad or some other low-carb vegetables instead of pairing those beans with another high-starch food like bread or corn or tortillas. Third, adding a strip of kombu. Kombu is a sea vegetable found in oceans around the world. And we add these to the beans while they are cooking. It improves digestibility while also adding lots of wonderful flavor. You can also add a bit of baking soda to the beans, but just use a little, just 1/8 of a teaspoon per pound of dried beans. The problem is too much baking soda turns the beans into mush. It makes them taste kind of soapy, and it can also destroy a lot of the B vitamins in the beans. Fourth, there's always Beano. Beano is just a digestive enzyme that you can take before you eat beans, and helps with digestion quite a bit. Lastly, if you have serious problems with digestion, including irritable bowel, Crohn's, colitis, SIBO, or maybe some autoimmune disease, good evidence suggests that beans might not be the best food for you. So bottom line, if eating beans bothers you significantly, it's best to avoid them. So what can we do with this batch of tender, flavorful, slow-cooked beans? There are so many options. As I said earlier, my favorite way to serve and enjoy beans is simply in a bowl with a few toppings, maybe with a salad on the side or a nice hunk of whole grain bread or tortillas. When I make white beans with rosemary and garlic at home, I usually serve them with a nice topping of some pesto, really nice flavor that matches well with the rosemary and the garlic. And then throw on some diced tomatoes on the top. And it makes a beautiful presentation and a delicious meal. I could also chill these beans, like I did here, and make a quick salad. Could be served as a meal alongside some grilled fish, shrimp, or chicken as a healthy alternative to other starchy foods like pasta or potatoes, or it could just be a meal all by itself. So just a quick salad idea is using some things that I just had in my refrigerator at home. I'm going to add some diced up red onion. So the onion adds a nice little punch of flavor and color and a little bit of crunch. You could also use white onion if you had it. You could use green onion or scallions. I also have some diced up red bell pepper, which adds color and flavor and also some crunch because the beans are soft. So it's nice to have some different textures to make things interesting. I think I'll chop up some parsley as well. I had parsley at home. If I had basil, I would probably chop up some basil and throw that in there as well. You know, beans are really a blank canvas. They take on so many other flavors that you can really just dress them however you like. So parsley, simple, inexpensive herb, adds tons of flavor, will add color, and lots of those really important phytochemicals that act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory chemicals in your body. So that might be all I add to this. I could also, if I had some capers, which I do at home, I'll throw a little bit of that in there too. Capers are just pickled, they're little flower buds, and that adds a little bit of interest in color and also a little bit of salt to the salad. And a simple dressing can be, this is lemon juice, a little pinch of salt, a little Dijon mustard, and some olive oil. I think I'll throw in a little bit of black pepper as well. About 1 part lemon juice, 2 parts olive oil. Could also use red wine vinegar. Goes really well with white beans. That's a nice combination. And just shake it up and toss it with your salad. And that's all there is to it. It's a simple, quick meal. Be a lovely lunch. Because I had these at home as well, I have some toasted walnuts that I think right before serving I'll throw some of these on top of the beans. Just before serving is a good idea, otherwise the walnuts can get a little mushy if they sit too long. So nice salad right there. Another idea, one last idea, is to turn your white beans into hummus. Really super easy to do. You could just blend those beans in a food processor with some garlic, lemon, a little salt, and olive oil. You can also dress it up with some basil pesto, like I've done here. Or you can just use a typical hummus recipe that you would use for garbanzo beans, but use white beans instead. So that might be white beans, lemon juice, olive oil, salt, and a little tahini. Sesame tahini is just toasted ground sesame seeds. And that's typically in most hummus recipes. So you can find the recipes for slow-cooked white beans with garlic and rosemary, white bean salad, and white bean hummus online at yrmchealthconnect.org. While you're there, check out all of the videos, recipes, and cooking tips we've collected there for you. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook at YRMC's Your Healthy Kitchen, where I share what I'm making at home with pictures, recipes, short instructional videos, and cooking tips and links to food and health-related events in the community. And because I can't resist, I'll leave you with this. Beans, beans, what a nutritious and versatile vegetable. If you cook them right, they're delicious and digestible. So until next time, eat well, and we'll see you soon.